Why did she choose seat 22C? And why did it suddenly feel like the safest and most dangerous place in the world? Martinez had spent months convincing herself this was just a vacation, nothing more. A 2-hour flight from Phoenix to Denver, a chance to see her sister, a chance to pretend that life was normal. After 8 years of active duty as an Air Force pilot and 2 more years struggling to build something resembling peace, normal was a word she still wasn't sure belonged to her. She had learned to survive on routine. Get up early, keep her hands busy with old aircraft restoration, avoid the long silences that let memories crawl back in. And when her sister Emma kept asking, pleading really for a visit, finally gave in. She booked a seat on Meridian Airways Flight 638, a simple trip, no missions, no codes, no call signs, just a woman sitting in 22C window seat middle of the aircraft. She told herself it was habit, but the truth was she never stopped evaluating risk. Window meant visibility. Row 22 meant quieter, fewer interruptions. Old instincts she couldn't shut off. The terminal in Phoenix buzzed with travelers, families wrangling children, spring breakers too loud for the hour, business executives juggling coffee and phone calls. Like the chaos, it was better than silence. She checked her boarding pass again, even though she knew exactly where she was headed. 3 hours early. Old military habit. When she finally boarded, she let her eyes sweep the cabin. Every surface told her something. The 737 was relatively new, maybe 5 years old. The crew was professional. Their safety briefing hit all the right notes. Eyes flicked toward the exits, counted the rows. She even tracked the captain's voice. Steady, practiced, but with the faintest trace of nerves. Pilots always gave themselves away if you listened hard enough. To the people around her, she was invisible. A businessman in a tailored suit hammered away at his laptop beside her. Across the aisle, a mother tried to soothe a restless toddler. Everyone wrapped in their own lives, their own stories. They would never guess the quiet woman in 22C had once flown classified missions over hostile territory, that she had seen things most people would never even hear rumors about. And that was how she wanted it, just another passenger, just another day. The takeoff was smooth. As Phoenix disappeared beneath them, allowed herself, for the first time in weeks, to breathe. She opened a paperback novel, slipped her earbuds in, tried to let herself get lost in something ordinary. But ordinary never lasted long, not for her. It happened 45 minutes into the flight, subtle, barely a shift. The aircraft nudged off its path, correcting course. A civilian passenger wouldn't have noticed, but training caught it instantly. It wasn't turbulence. It wasn't traffic avoidance. It was precise, deliberate, a redirection. She frowned, sat a little, and peered out the window. The world below was still on schedule, Arizona desert fatting into Colorado's mountains. But the sky had changed. At first it looked like faint scratches against the blue. Contrails, too coordinated, too precise, more than one, military, not civilian. She pressed her face closer, blocking the glare, and then she saw it. A plane, not just any plane. Massive, unmistakable, its blue and white paint shimmering against the sun, its presence impossible to mistake. Air Force One. Her blood froze. Air Force One didn't share airspace with commercial traffic. When the president flew, the skies were cleared for hundreds of miles. Every corridor rerouted. Security protocols locked like steel. And yet here it was, keeping formation with Flight 638, as if the passengers inside were completely unaware of the impossible sight. No one else reacted. The businessman beside her kept typing. The toddler's mother was reading a book. The attendants smiled as they rolled carts down the aisle, felt the weight of the moment press into her chest. This wasn't coincidence. This was controlled, intentional. And then the intercom clicked. Ladies and, Captain Jake's voice filled the cabin, steady but clipped, we're experiencing minor communication issues with air traffic control. You may notice some slight course adjustments. Nothing to be concerned about. We'll arrive in Denver on schedule. Minor issues, slight adjustments, words wrapped in calm but too carefully chosen, new military euphemisms when she heard them. That wasn't reassurance, that was containment. Her instincts whispered the truth. Something had gone very, very wrong. She kept her eyes fixed on the sky. More aircraft now, flanking, shadows in precise choreography. This wasn't escorting for safety. This was an operation, and it was all centered on a single, ordinary commercial flight. A chill crept down her spine as the cockpit radio cracked loud enough for the front rows to hear. Static first, then a voice, sharp, encrypted, military. Meridian 638 maintain heading and altitude. Presidential escort formation acknowledged. Falcon 9 confirmed status. Stomach dropped. Falcon 9. Her call sign. 8 years buried in classified files. A name that was never supposed to be spoken outside sealed briefings and debrief rooms. Yet here it was, echoing in a cabin full of civilians, wrapped in presidential security channels. Someone knew. Someone had pulled her ghost out of the grave and put it on open airwaves. Her pulse hammered. Why, who? She gripped the armrest, her body tense. A thought she didn't want to consider rose unbidden. Was this about protecting her or hunting her? Around her, life went on in maddening normalcy. The businessman rubbed his eyes and muttered about spreadsheets. A flight attendant offered coffee. The toddler giggled at crayons. Nobody else heard the threat crackling through the air. Nobody else saw the invisible crosshairs tightening around seat 22C. The escort grew. What began as Air Force One and a few fighters expanded into a full security envelope. 8 aircraft, maybe more. Trained eye caught the coordination, the protective arc. To the untrained eye, nothing unusual. To her, it was the language of danger. The captain's voice returned, still calm but thinner now. Ladies, and due to precautionary measures, will be landing at Space Force Base in Colorado Springs. Routine communication equipment issues. Thank you for your patience. Not Denver, not civilian, military, locked, sealed, heavily secured. His hands trembled. She knew what that meant. This wasn't about faulty radios. It was about her. The escorts were protecting the president from a civilian jet. They were pulling a woman in seat 22C into the heart of military control. The descent was sharp, unnatural. Outside the window, the protective formation tightened, shepherding them down like prey. The businessman finally looked up, squinting. Military planes. Training exercise, muttered, forcing her face neutral. But inside, her mind raced. The wheels hit the runway hard, rolling into a sea of flashing lights. Not civilian ground crews, military vehicles, tactical, armed, ready. The cabin filled with murmurs. Passengers glanced around nervously, demanding answers, but already knew. Her time as a tourist was over. Falcon 9 had been summoned. And the question still hanging, louder than the sound of engines cooling, was the one she couldn't shake. Were they here to save her or to bury her? Why were the soldiers waiting at the runway? And why did their eyes linger only on her? The aircraft door hissed open, but instead of friendly ground staff, tactical boots hit the floor first. Military police in full gear moved swiftly down the aisle. Their weapons weren't raised, but they didn't need to be. Their posture said everything. Passengers shifted uncomfortably, whispering, craning to see. A mother clutched her child closer. A businessman muttered something about lawsuits, but the soldiers didn't look at them. They moved seat by seat, checking IDs, asking brief questions, efficient, impersonal, until they reached row 22. The sergeant's eyes landed on her ID and lingered. Too long. She said a few clipped words into her radio, words recognized as confirmation of target acquisition. Ms. Martinez, we're going to need you to come with us for additional screening. The businessman stiffened. Additional screening, what's this about? Routine protocol, sir, the sergeant replied, smooth as steel. but knew better. Nothing about this was routine. She stood, her bag slung over her shoulder, moving quietly down the aisle under the stares of passengers. Some looked sympathetic, others suspicious, but none of them would remember the truth. Within hours, they'd be sipping airport coffee, repeating the cover story about communication issues at a military base. Their inconvenience would end. Hers wouldn't. Outside, the air bit sharp and cold. Military vehicles surrounded the jet like wolves around a sheep. Not buses, not vans, armored transports. One waited for her specifically, its back door yawning open. 2 guards flanked her, guiding her inside. No cuffs, no force, but their presence said clearly she wasn't free. The vehicle jolted forward, pulling away from Flight 638. Pressed her palm against the reinforced window, catching one last glimpse of the passengers being herded toward waiting buses. They were headed for soft chairs and free snacks in a terminal lounge. She was headed deeper into a base she knew too well. High walls, classified wings, corridors built to make people disappear. Her chest tightened. She remembered a promise she'd once made to herself the day she left active duty. Never again. Never another interrogation room. Never another debrief where secrets and lies were indistinguishable. She wanted engines, metal, oil-stained hangars, things that could be fixed with her hands. Not this. And yet here she was, Falcon 9, Seat 22C target acquired. The transport rolled to a stop in front of a squat building with narrow windows and too many cameras. Administrative. Secure. The kind of place designed to strip you down to what you knew and force it out of you. The guards guided her inside. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, their glow too white, too sterile. Her reflection in the glass doors startled her, pale, eyes sharp with fear she didn't want to admit. But beneath it she saw something else, an edge of resolve that military training never allowed her to lose. The room they put her in was small, intentionally uncomfortable. White walls, a metal table, 2 chairs, a spotlight bright enough to sting her eyes but never warm. For 45 minutes no one came. That was the first tactic, isolation. Let the subject's thoughts chew on themselves. She forced her mind to stay sharp. Every detail, the faint camera lens tucked into the ceiling corner, the subtle microphone grids in the walls. She sat straight, breathing steady. Finally, the door opened. 2 figures entered. A woman in Air Force uniform, major's rank, intelligence branch, sharp eyes, cold posture. She sat like this room belonged to her. And a man in a dark suit, DHS, maybe FBI, civilian authority. He carried himself with the practiced calm of someone used to asking questions people didn't want to answer. "Ms. Martinez," the major began, sliding into the chair across from her. "I'm Major Torres, Air Force Intelligence. This is Agent Michael, Department of Homeland Security. We need to ask you some questions." Didn't flinch. About what? Torres opened a folder. Photographs slid across the table. Her hangar in Phoenix, her aircraft restoration business. Grainy shots clearly taken from a distance. Surveillance. She felt her chest tighten. "You operate Martinez Aviation Services," Torres said, "specializing in restoring vintage military aircraft for civilian use." "That's right, licensed, certified, legal." Agent leaned forward, his tone deceptively calm. "Of course, but we're curious about your recent projects, especially this one." He laid down another photo. His breath caught. An F-16, not just a frame or stripped shell, more complete, more intact than any civilian project should be. "That's a 1987 F-16C, she said carefully. "Converted for air shows, decommissioned, demilitarized, purchased from a contractor with full authorization." Tor's eyes didn't move. "Authorization that doesn't exist in our system." Blinked. "That's not possible." "Isn't it?" asked softly. He slid another document forward. It looked familiar, her purchase agreement, but not the one she remembered signing. The codes were wrong, the signatures off. and a clause at the bottom, one she had never seen, authorizing transfer of technical specifications and operational parameters. "This is a forgery," snapped. "It's not what I signed." Tilted his head. "Funny, because this is what the FAA has on file, and the Department of Defense, and it suggests you may have facilitated illegal transfer of classified technology." The air seemed to thicken. His chest pounded. This wasn't a mistake. Someone had gone into the system, changed her records, replaced her signature with a version that damned her. "This is a setup," she whispered. Tor's gaze sharpened. "Is it? Then explain these." More papers, logs of calls, texts, emails. Her name attached to strings of numbers she didn't recognize. Conversations about deliveries, specifications, payment. Communications with foreign operatives. Fabricated, all of it. Shook her head, anger rising through the fear. "None of this is mine. I never sent those. I don't even know those contacts." "Convenient," Tor said coldly. His voice softened again, like he was offering mercy. "Ms. Martinez, these charges fall under the Arms Export Control Act, the Espionage Act. We're talking 20 years, maybe life, unless you help us understand how you were used." His jaw clenched. They were baiting her, offering her a lifeline that was actually a noose. Admit she'd been used, and she admitted guilt by association. Step into their narrative, and she'd never climb out. "I want a lawyer." The words hit the air like a weapon. Sighed, almost pitying. "A lawyer might not be able to help. National security restrictions, classified evidence. Your counsel could be limited." "I still want a lawyer." Torres closed the folder slowly, her expression unreadable. "Think carefully, Captain. This isn't a game." She stood, followed, the door shut, silence again. But's mind wasn't silent. It burned. Someone had gone to impossible lengths to trap her. Someone with access to systems, to codes, to surveillance. This wasn't petty. This wasn't random. This was orchestrated. And the question twisted through her like a knife. Why her? Why now? The door opened again. This time a different figure stepped in. An older man, colonel's uniform, weathered face, gray at the temples. His eyes carried the weight of someone who had seen too much, hidden too much. He sat down across from her, then casually pulled a small device from his pocket. A faint hum filled the room. The cameras stopped blinking. The static vanished from the walls. "Signal jammer," he said quietly. "We've got 10 minutes." His breath caught. "Who are you?" "Colonel Price," he answered, his voice low. "And I know you're being set up." Her pulse spiked. "Why should I believe you?" Price leaned closer, his voice sharp, urgent. "Because 8 years ago, Operation Ghost Rider, Mission GR-47, September 15, 2016, you saw something you weren't supposed to see." His blood ran cold, memories surged. That mission, that malfunctioning camera that kept rolling, the footage she was told was erased. "What did I see?" she whispered. Price's eyes hardened. Evidence of a rogue network. American officers, foreign nationals, selling weapons under the table, billions in profit, and your footage caught them red-handed. His breath trembled. The puzzle pieces slammed together. The forged contracts, the fake emails, the call sign echoing from the sky. They weren't protecting her. They were burying her. Why did the colonel shut off the cameras? What secret was worth risking his career? Sat frozen, the faint hum of the signal jammer pressing into the silence. Colonel Price leaned forward, his eyes hard, but not hostile. He looked like a man carrying the weight of something he had hidden too long. "You recorded 47 minutes of continuous footage," he said. "A weapons facility that was supposed to be abandoned. But it wasn't abandoned. It was active, and the people moving crates weren't supposed to be there." His voice dropped. "You're saying I filmed Americans trading weapons?" Price's jaw tightened. "Not just Americans, senior officers, contractors, foreign agents. A network. rogue operations generating billions in illegal arms sales, and your footage was the kind of evidence that could destroy them all. Her pulse hammered. She remembered the mission. She remembered the malfunction, the camera refusing to stop recording, eating up storage, clicking through frame after frame of desert buildings and shadowed convoys. They told her it was wiped, filed as junk data, buried. But Price was telling her it wasn't destroyed. "Why now?" she whispered. "Why pull me out of a commercial flight in the middle of spring break traffic? Why not leave me alone?" "Because someone's been asking questions," Price said, glancing at the door as if even the jammer couldn't protect them long. "Congressional investigators, inspectors general, people with real authority. Your name came up. Your mission came up. And this network, this cabal, decided you were the weak point." His mind raced. "So they frame me, make me look guilty, destroy my credibility before I can ever testify." "Exactly," Price said. "By the time investigators ask you about Ghost Rider, you're already a convicted traitor. No one believes you. The network survives. You take the fall." Her chest tightened. The documents Torres laid out, the fake calls, the forged signatures, they weren't sloppily done. They were perfect, designed to bury her so deep even the truth would sound like a lie. She looked at Price, her throat dry. "Why should I trust you?" His eyes softened just barely. "Because I ordered those missions, and because I've been chasing the truth ever since I realized what I put my pilots into. Ghost Rider wasn't recon, it was cover. Cover for illegal transfers. I didn't see it at first, but I see it now. And I know they'll kill me just as quickly as they'll kill you." The door handle rattled. Price snapped off the jammer, leaned back, and his posture shifted instantly, an interrogator's mask replacing whatever truth he'd shown her. The door swung open. Major Torres strode in, agent behind her, both carrying more folders. Torres' eyes were sharp, predatory. "Captain Martinez," she said smoothly, "we've prepared a confession agreement. Full cooperation, reduced sentence, minimal exposure. 8 to 12 years instead of life. That's generous considering the evidence." She slid the paper across the table. The words screamed guilt in black ink. Felt her stomach twist. Signing it meant everything was lost, her credibility, her freedom, her chance at truth. But out of the corner of her eye she saw Price's hand tap a rhythm on the table. A code, military, simple, sharp. "Trust me, play along." Forced her breathing steady. She let her eyes skim the confession, then looked up. "I need time." His tone hardened. "You have until morning. After that, the full charges go forward. You'll never see the outside of a cell again." Tor's eyes narrowed. "Think carefully, Captain. Tomorrow, you'll wish you had taken this deal." They left her in silence again. Price stayed behind just a moment longer, his face carved in stone for the cameras. But under his breath, barely audible, "Tonight, emergency frequency. Don't break." He was gone. Sat alone, the paper still in front of her. The cameras blinked again in the corners. She picked up the pen, stared at the line waiting for her signature, and for the first time in years she felt the crushing weight of helplessness. Her call sign had been a warning. Falcon 9 wasn't a pilot anymore. Falcon 9 was prey. That night they moved her, not to a cell block, not to a holding room, to a secure isolation chamber on the far edge of the base. One bed, one window, a metal desk bolted to the floor. She lay awake, the walls pressing in. She thought of Emma, her sister, waiting in Denver, probably wondering why hadn't called. She thought of her shop, the half-finished aircraft that smelled of oil and paint and quiet dreams. She thought of the lives lost, pilots who accidentally died, whose stories were buried with them. And she thought of Price, his words echoing emergency frequency, tonight. At 200 hours she found it, a small radio receiver taped beneath the desk exactly where he'd hinted. Her fingers trembled as she tuned it. Static, then a voice. "Falcon 9, this is Eagle Base. Do you copy?" Her training clicked in. No words, just one press on the transmitter, yes. Falcon 9, package delivery in 15 minutes. Window northwest side ground level. Acknowledge. One press. She moved to the window. Beyond the perimeter, lights swept the runway. Security patrols rotated with military precision. If she had 15 minutes, that meant someone knew the schedule better than the guards themselves. At exactly 2:17, a shadow appeared at the base of the building. Silent, swift. The figure placed something against the wall, a small backpack, then vanished. Her heart pounded. She waited another 10 minutes, then tested the ventilation grate above her desk. The screws were already loose. Someone had prepared this. Climbed, her body still wired from years of training. She wriggled through the narrow opening, scraped her shoulder, then dropped to the ground outside. The cold air hit her like a slap. She crouched low, grabbed the pack. Civilian clothes, a key card, a tablet, and a small drive labeled Operation Ghost Rider, complete files. She froze, her hands shook as she tucked it away. Proof, real proof. The radio crackled once more. Falcon 9, rendezvous, building 47, 2, Colonel Price waiting, move now. She pulled the hoodie from the pack, slipped it over her uniform, and began moving in the shadows. Every step was measured, every breath shallow. She wasn't Falcon 9, the tourist, anymore. She wasn't the mechanic from Phoenix. She was back to being the pilot trained to move unseen, to survive, to fight her way out. And she knew now, this wasn't about saving herself. This was about exposing a machine so powerful it had murdered its own, buried the truth, and turned her life into bait. If Price was telling the truth, the files in her hands were a detonator, the kind that didn't blow steel or concrete, but reputations, careers, and the rotten heart of power itself. The question clawed at her with every step she took through the darkened base. Could she trust Colonel Price, or was she walking into the arms of the very enemy she was running from? Why would a maintenance elevator in Building 47 descend deeper than any building needed? Clutched the backpack as the elevator doors slid shut. The key card from the package had worked flawlessly. She pressed the button for 2, though the panel looked wrong, like the button had been added later, hidden in plain sight. The hum of the machinery echoed in the small box, carrying her farther below ground than she thought possible. When the doors opened, it wasn't an office hallway that greeted her. It was a command center. Rows of computer stations lined the walls, each lit with encrypted feeds, real-time maps, surveillance overlays. Screens flickered with satellite footage, coded transmissions, data streams that shouldn't exist outside the most secure agencies in the world. And standing at the center waiting was Colonel Price. But he wasn't alone. A woman turned toward, her presence commanding even without a uniform. Dark hair streaked with gray, sharp eyes that burned with something deeper than suspicion, conviction. "Captain Martinez," she said, stepping forward, extending a hand. "Major Kelly Singh, former Air Force Intelligence, now Inspector General's office. We've been waiting for you." Hesitated, trust didn't come easily anymore. Not after tonight. But Singh's gaze was steady, her grip firm. This wasn't someone playing games. Singh gestured to a large display screen. "There's something you need to see." The screen lit up with grainy footage. Stomach flipped instantly. She knew the perspective. Knew the slight tremor in the feed, the lens distortion. It was her F-16, her mission. September 15, 2016. Operation Ghost Rider. The recording, she had been told, was destroyed. For the first time, she watched it play. The desert stretched wide below, endless sand broken by the outline of a compound, supposedly abandoned, but the video showed movement, figures, vehicles, shadows too crisp to be accidents. Singh froze the frame at a convoy's arrival, trucks unloading crates, men in uniform, American uniforms, supervising, and alongside them men in no uniform at all, foreigners, civilians, agents, she didn't know. Price's voice cut low and grim. Those crates, surface-to-air missiles, javelins, technology we reported destroyed, but instead of being scrapped, they were sold. Singh zoomed in. The camera caught faces. Grainy but clear enough. A major she didn't know. A colonel. And then her breath caught General Robert Sterling. The same general who'd overseen the Middle East tech transfers during her years of service. Shook her head slowly. This can't be real. It's very real, Singh said. And it's why they want you erased. This footage, combined with your testimony, could prove that senior U.S. military officers sold billions in technology under the cover of Ghost Rider. Technology that ended up in the hands of adversaries. Technology that killed allies. His throat tightened. She thought of the pilots, the friends she'd lost. Accidents, they'd called them, mechanical failures, training crashes. But Singh's words cut through her like shrapnel. They weren't accidents, were they? Whispered. Price's expression darkened. 3 Ghost Rider pilots are dead, all within 5 years. All in incidents too neat to be coincidence. Each of them saw something. Each of them might have talked. And now, he gestured at her. You're the last. The room felt colder. His breath shook. She tried to keep her military mask steady, but inside she felt it, the fear. Not of dying, but of being erased. Of being turned into the traitor history would remember while the guilty walked free. She turned back to the footage. Trucks, crates, handshakes, faces. The casualness of betrayal. She wanted to look away, but couldn't. Why didn't this come out years ago? She asked. Singh's eyes hardened. Because the people involved had the power to bury it. They controlled the chain of custody, the reports, the investigations. Every time a thread surfaced, it was cut. Every witness eliminated, every record scrubbed, until now. Price pulled up another screen. An organizational chart, names branching out like a disease. 47 active and retired officers, he said. 15 contractors. 6 confirmed foreign intelligence operatives. It's not just a few bad actors. It's a network, a machine. His chest heaved, and I'm supposed to stop this. Singh's tone softened, but it didn't hide the steel beneath. You don't have to stop it alone. You just have to survive it, testify, confirm what you saw, let the evidence speak. His eyes locked on hers. You don't know what you're asking. They've already forged my life into a crime scene. They're not just trying to silence me. They're making sure I can never stand on a witness stand without looking like a liar. Exactly, Singh said. Which is why we need you to help us trap them in their own lies. Price placed a small device on the table. It looked like a comms pin, standard enough. But he flipped it open, revealing a tiny blinking light. A transmitter, he said. Concealable. Tomorrow they'll come back with another confession deal. You'll play along, look broken, look desperate, while this records everything they say, every threat, every lie, every plan, real-time transmission to us. Stared at the device. Her hands trembled as she picked it up. It was light, too light to carry the weight they were placing on it. And if they find it, she asked. Then you'll need this, Price said, sliding a pill across the table. Blinked. What is it? Emergency extraction, Singh explained. Simulates a medical crisis. Severe enough they'll rush you to base medical. We can pull you from there. But if you take it, the operation's blown. No recording, no evidence, just survival. The pill sat in her palm, tiny, unassuming. The difference between life and death. Between exposing the truth and watching it vanish. She closed her fingers around it. Why me? She whispered. I was just a pilot, a soldier who did her job. I didn't ask for this. Singh's voice softened. Because you're still standing. Because you didn't break. Because when they tried to bury you under lies, you fought back. That's why. The words hit her harder than any interrogation. She had spent years thinking she was broken, haunted by nightmares, trying to build something quiet out of the wreckage of war. But Singh was telling her she wasn't broken. She was dangerous to the people who had betrayed everything she once swore to protect. Price's tone cut the moment sharp. It has to be tonight. Tomorrow they move you to a black site. No oversight, no hope, you'll vanish. So you go back to your cell now, play the role, let them think they've broken you, and when they whisper their plan, we'll be listening. The weight of it pressed against his chest. She wasn't being asked to fly. She wasn't being asked to fight in the skis. She was being asked to become bait, to play prisoner while killers circled, hoping she would slip. Her mind screamed at her to run, to vanish into the night with the ghost writer files and never look back. But her training, her oath, her conscience whispered something else. This wasn't just about her. It was about the pilots who had died, the allies killed by weapons they were never supposed to face, the betrayal of a uniform she had once worn with pride. She tucked the transmitter into her sleeve, slid the pill into her pocket, and looked at Singh and Price with a steadiness she didn't feel inside. "I'll do it." Singh nodded once, the faintest trace of respect flickering in her eyes. "Then tonight, Captain, you stop being their prisoner. You become their trap." Price led her to a maintenance tunnel, a hidden route back toward the isolation block. As they reached the exit, Singh's voice followed her, firm, almost solemn. "Remember, integrity isn't about being perfect. It's about doing the right thing when it costs everything." Stepped into the tunnel, her hand brushing the cold wall, her heart hammering. When she emerged back into her cell, the guards barely looked at her. Just another tired prisoner. Just another woman they thought they'd broken. But beneath the thin mattress, a transmitter pulsed softly, and in her pocket a pill waited. The game was set. And as lay down, feigning exhaustion, her thoughts turned to one burning question. Would she survive long enough to see the truth revealed, or had she just agreed to her own execution? Why did the morning feel heavier than night? Why did sunlight through the bars feel like a warning instead of mercy? Sat on the edge of her cot, head bowed, hands clasped as if in surrender. She'd practiced the look all night, slumped shoulders, unfocused eyes, lips dry and pale. The look of a woman who'd been broken. She had to sell it. Under her sleeve, the transmitter pressed against her skin, a silent heartbeat that felt louder than her own. Every motion threatened to expose it. Every breath reminded her she wasn't allowed to falter. The door creaked open. Boots echoed. Major Torres entered first, her uniform sharp, her expression sharper. Agent followed, carrying a folder too thick to be anything but theater. Behind them, a guard lingered, silent muscle. Torres studied with calculated satisfaction. "Rough night, Captain." Lifted her eyes slowly, forcing them heavy with exhaustion. She didn't speak. Silence was safer than lies. Slid into the chair across from her, folding his hands like a priest offering confession. "We've reviewed everything. Phone records, bank transfers, emails. The picture is clear, but we're willing to be lenient if you cooperate." He opened the folder, sliding a typed document across the table. Another confession agreement, shorter this time, cleaner, more final. "All you need to do is sign this," said softly. "Admit you transferred sensitive information. Admit you knowingly aided foreign actors. Do that and this all goes away quietly. You serve a short sentence, 10 years, maybe less. You get your life back." Let her eyes linger on the paper. Her fingers trembled just enough to look real. She whispered, her voice hoarse, "And if I do?" Torres leaned in, her smile cold. "Then you disappear. Or worse, we can bury you so deep no one even remembers you existed. You'll be Falcon 9 only on a headstone that doesn't have your name." The words cut sharper than knives, not because they surprised her but because they sounded too polished, too rehearsed. This wasn't speculation. This was policy. She forced her breath shaky, letting her shoulders sag. I didn't mean for any of this," she murmured, low, just enough for the transmitter to catch. His eyes flickered triumph hidden behind false sympathy. "Then say that, put it in writing, end this." He pushed the paper closer. The pen clattered softly against the metal table. Reached for it, her hand trembling. Inside, her mind screamed, Every instinct demanded she refuse, but she wasn't here to win. She was here to bait, to draw them into saying too much. Her fingers brushed the pen. "Before I sign," she whispered, lifting her eyes to, "tell me why me?" For the first time hesitated. Torres shot him a look sharp as a blade, but his pride betrayed him. He leaned closer, his voice almost tender. "Because you were sloppy." Blinked, masking the surge of fury. "You left traces," continued. "That footage you accidentally recorded, it should been destroyed. But it lingered, copies hidden in places we couldn't erase. And when investigators started digging, your name was there. You became the liability. Better to make you the villain than let the truth crawl out." Tor's voice followed, smooth and cutting. "You were just unlucky, Captain. Wrong mission, wrong time. And now you're our example. Every system needs one. The scapegoat who keeps the machine running." The words burned. Gripped the pen, her body trembling not with fear but with rage she had to bury deep. She lowered her gaze, feigned defeat, let her shoulders slump. "I'll sign," she whispered. Tor's lips curled, satisfied. Bent over the paper, pen hovering above the signature line. Her pulse thundered. She pressed the tip down, just enough to scratch the page, not enough to mark her name. Then she paused. Her voice broke in just the right way. Will this stop the others?" Tilted his head. "What others?" Risked it, her eyes flicked up wide, almost pleading. "The others, the ones still doing it. The transfers, the shipments. If I take the blame, they'll stop right." Torres chuckled, low and cruel. "Oh, Captain, you still don't get it. The machine doesn't stop, not for you, not for anyone." The transmitter pulsed against her skin. Every word etched into a signal now, leaving the room. Leaned closer, his voice a whisper meant to crush hope. "By next year, half of those weapons will be across the Pacific, and no one will care. You'll be rotting in a cell while generals toast with champagne. That's the truth." His chest heaved. She let a tear slip, silent and convincing. She set the pen down without signing. I just need time." Torres snatched the paper back, her smile sharp. "You have until tonight. After that, we don't ask again." They rose, the guard followed. The door slammed shut. Sat motionless, her hands trembling in the silence. Inside, adrenaline surged, rage burning through her chest. But she forced herself still, knowing the cameras watched. Only when she lay back on the cot did her hand slip under her sleeve. The transmitter's light blinked faintly, alive, recording every damning word. Hours passed like years. She drifted between exhaustion and a sharp edge of anticipation. If Singh and Price had received the feed, then the evidence was out there now. Proof that Torres and weren't investigators, they were conspirators. Proof the machine was still running. But proof wasn't protection. By evening, footsteps echoed again. The door opened. This time only Torres entered. No guard, just her. She stood over, her posture too casual, her tone laced with venom. "You think you're clever," Torres said quietly. "But we're not stupid. People like you always think they can wiggle out, find allies, find saviors. There are no saviors, Captain, not here." She stepped closer, so close could smell the sharp tang of her perfume, feel the edge of her shadow. "You won't live to testify," Torres whispered. "But don't worry, we've already planned the story. Suicide in custody, fits your profile, a disgraced pilot who couldn't face the shame. People will believe it. They always do." His blood ran cold. Torres smiled faintly, leaned in closer. "And the best part, no one will even ask the right questions." She straightened, smoothing her uniform as if nothing had been said, and left the room without another word. Sat frozen, her fists clenched so tight her nails cut her palms. The transmitter blinked under her sleeve, every syllable captured. But the truth cut deep. Torres wasn't bluffing. They didn't need her confession anymore. They didn't even need her alive. And as the lock slid into place, realized the transmitter wasn't just evidence now. It was her only prayer that someone, anyone, would hear it before they killed her. Why did midnight feel louder inside a locked cell? Why did silence carry the sound of waiting footsteps? Lay on her cot, every nerve strung tight. The words Tors had whispered still clawed at her chest, suicide in custody. She could almost see the headlines already, neat and tragic, erasing her with a single paragraph. The transmitter pulsed faintly beneath her sleeve. Proof existed now, but proof meant nothing if she didn't live long enough to make it matter. A faint static crackled in her pocket radio, the one hidden in the vent. Singh's voice, low and sharp, slipped through the darkness. "Falcon 9, this is Overwatch. Copy." Pressed once. "We received everything," Singh continued. "Tors and are compromised. You gave us what we needed. Now we get you out." Her chest loosened just a fraction. Proof. They had it. The network couldn't bury it anymore. But Singh's tone shifted, an edge of urgency beneath the control. "Timelines accelerated. They're moving on you tonight. Extraction team en route. 20 minutes, hold position." Hold position. Easier said than done, when the air itself tasted like betrayal. Footsteps echoed outside her door. A key scraped. Sat up, forcing calm into her posture. The door opened, and it was Singh's team. 2 guards stepped inside, their faces blank, movements too sharp, too rehearsed. One carried restraints, the other a syringe. "Orders just came down," one muttered. "Transfer to medical, psychological evaluation." Her chest tightened. Tor's words slammed back into her mind. Suicide in custody. She rose slowly, stalling. Now, in the middle of the night. The guard's jaw flexed. "Orders." They moved toward her. His pulse roared. She slipped her hand into her pocket, fingers brushing the small pill Singh had given her. Emergency extraction. Simulated crisis. Her only chance to survive long enough for Singh's team to arrive. The guard reached for her arm. She popped the pill into her mouth and swallowed. At first nothing, then fire, her chest constricted, muscles locked. Her vision blurred as her heart thundered, racing and skipping at once. She collapsed to her knees, gasping. "Medical emergency," one guard shouted, panic slicing through the calm. "She's crashing." They lifted her onto a stretcher with rough urgency, rushing her down the corridor. Sirens wailed overhead, red lights flashing through the sterile hallways. Fought to keep consciousness. The pill wasn't supposed to kill her, but it felt like it might. Every breath burned. Every beat of her heart was a hammer against glass. They wheeled her into the base medical wing. Doctors scrambled, monitors flashing as they strapped her down. Oxygen mask, IV lines, hands pressing, injecting, stabilizing. Through the haze caught a glimpse of a clock on the wall. 2:17. Singh's team would be here. They had to be. Then shouts. Outside, boots pounding, the sharp crack of suppressed gunfire. The doctors froze, exchanging terrified glances. One bolted the door. The lights flickered, then the wall itself seemed to shake. Smoke filled the hallway. A voice, muffled but commanding, cut through the chaos. "Falcon 9 extraction, hold tight." Her heart surged with relief. Singh's team, they made it. The door burst open. Figures in black tactical gear stormed inside. Masks, rifles, precise movements. They surrounded the bed, covering the doctors, cutting restraints. One leaned down, grabbing her arm. His voice was low, urgent. "Captain Martinez, you're coming with us." Her chest heaved, but relief warred with suspicion. The patch on his shoulder blank. No insignia, no unit. Singh's people would have IDs, codes, something. Her gut twisted. What if this wasn't them? The man pulled her upright, half carrying her. "Move now." She stumbled, her vision still blurred. Her hand brushed against his gear, feeling the cold shape of the rifle. Military issue, but the safety was taped off. Field trick, contractor style. Not Singh's team. Her body screamed with weakness, but instinct roared louder. She twisted, wrenching free just enough to slam her elbow into his ribs. He staggered, grip loosening. Gunfire erupted again, this time from the opposite end of the hall. Another squad stormed in, their patches clear. Inspector General Task Force, Singh's people. The room exploded into chaos. Bullets tore the air, sparks flying as rounds ricocheted off metal. Doctors screamed, ducking under tables. Dropped low, crawling toward cover, her lungs burning. Hands grabbed her, this time pulling her behind a medical cart. Singh's voice cut through the noise. "Falcon 9, it's us." Looked up, her vision clearing just enough to see Singh's sharp eyes through the mask. Relief cracked her chest. But the fight wasn't over. The fake team regrouped, pushing hard, their fire disciplined, their angles lethal. Whoever they weren't amateurs. This was no sloppy cover-up team. This was the machine's hand-picked hunters. Price's voice cut through the comms, steady and grim. "Eagle 1 to Overwatch. We've got hostiles inside medical. Extraction compromised." Singh fired back, her jaw clenched. "Negative, not compromised. We're not leaving without her." Gritted her teeth, forcing her body to move. The pill's effects still racked her system, but she refused to be dead weight. She grabbed a fallen sidearm from the floor, her grip shaky but familiar. She rose just enough to fire 2 rounds toward the doorway, covering Singh's flank. The recoil jolted her weak muscles, but the shots pinned one hostile back long enough for Singh's team to advance. They moved fast, clearing room by room, dragging with them. Alarms blared across the base, now too loud, too urgent. The whole facility was waking up. By the time they reached the service tunnel, his legs were buckling. Price grabbed her under the arm, half carrying her. "We've got 60 seconds before reinforcements close in," he barked. Singh's team hustled, leading them into the dark tunnel. Explosions rattled behind them, charges set to slow pursuit. The air filled with smoke, dust, and the acrid sting of burning wires. They burst out into the night air, sprinting across the tarmac toward an unmarked transport waiting with engines hot. Gunfire cracked behind them, searchlights sweeping. Stumbled into the vehicle, collapsing onto the bench. The doors slammed shut. The engine roared. For a brief fleeting moment, she thought they'd made it. Then a flash lit the night sky. "Missile lock warning," screamed inside the cockpit. Price cursed, gripping the straps. "They're targeting us from inside the base." His heart dropped. They weren't supposed to have authorization to fire on U.S. soil, not against their own. But this wasn't authorization. This was the machine, cutting its losses. Singh grabbed hand, squeezing tight. "Hold on." The pilot jerked the transport hard left. The missile streaked overhead, exploding in the distance. Another warning screamed. A second missile inbound. Stomach twisted as the vehicle lurched. For the first time since the mission began, she felt the raw edge of panic. Not fear of death, but fear that the truth, the transmitter, the files, everything, would die with her. She closed her eyes, whispered under her breath, "Please, just let the truth survive me." The transport dove into the night, the missile's trail cutting closer, closer. And realized she wasn't running anymore. She was in the middle of a war she could no longer escape. Why does safety feel like a lie when the air still tastes of smoke and missile fuel? Sat on a cot her body trembling from exhaustion. Her chest still ached from the pill's violent grip, her muscles raw from being dragged through tunnels and slammed into armored walls. She wanted to sleep, to vanish into silence, but sleep felt dangerous, too close to surrender. The room was dim, lit by a single lamp. Peeling paint, thick curtains, no windows visible from the street. A place designed to be forgotten. Singh entered quietly, setting a steaming mug on the table beside her. Ginger tea, for the nausea. His hands shook as she wrapped them around the mug. The warmth helped, but only slightly. She stared into the rising steam, the fog mirroring her thoughts. "How long do we have?" she asked softly. Singh didn't answer right away. She stood near the door, arms folded, eyes on the shadows. always watching, always calculating. Hours, she said finally, maybe less. They'll be tearing that base apart, searching every camera, every log, every gap. But for the first time, they're scared. Let out a bitter laugh. Scared. They nearly killed us with a missile on U.S. soil. Doesn't feel like fear to me. Price's voice came from the corner. He leaned against the wall, his face grim, his eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. It is fear. Only desperation makes them that reckless. They know the net is closing. The evidence is out. The recordings are backed up in multiple secure channels now. Even if we all vanish tonight, they can't erase the truth anymore. The truth. Wanted to believe him. But the image of Tors leaning close, whispering suicide in custody into her ear, still poisoned her thoughts. Truth isn't enough, she whispered. Not if the world never sees it. Not if they bury it under noise, spin it into something it's not. You said it yourself, Major. People believe the story they're told, not the one that's real. Silence settled heavy between them. Singh finally moved closer, crouching in front of her, eyes steady, unflinching. Then don't let them control the story, Singh said. You tell it, you show it, with your voice, with your face. They can fake documents, they can forge emails, but they can't fake the pain in your eyes when you say what you lived through. His throat tightened. She looked away, gripping the mug. You think anyone wants to listen to a disgraced pilot? A soldier who left her unit and disappeared into a mechanic's shop because she couldn't stand to wear the uniform anymore. Her voice cracked raw. I'm not the one who deserves to stand up. The others, those pilots, they should be here, not me. Singh's hand rested on her knee, firm. But they're not. They're gone, and you're here. That makes you the one who has to speak. Price's voice followed, lower, almost reverent. Falcon 9, they're afraid of you for a reason. You carry their greatest mistake in your hands, and in their world, the one who holds the truth is more dangerous than any fighter jet. Closed her eyes. She wanted to reject it, to shove it all back on their shoulders, let Singh or Price carry the burden. But deep inside, under the exhaustion, under the rage, something flickered. A memory. Her first flight alone, years ago. The silence of the sky, the sense of being weightless and powerful all at once. Her instructor's voice over the radio. You carry more than a plane up here. You carry every soul who trusts you not to fall. She had carried them once. She could carry them again. She opened her eyes, her voice quieter now. So what happens next? Singh exchanged a glance with Price, then spoke. We can't keep running, not forever. They'll always chase you, always try to erase you, so we flip it. We take the fight to them, public, loud, before they can silence you. His chest tightened, public as in testify. Not just testify, Singh said. Expose, broadcast, a press briefing, a live feed. Once your face is out there with the evidence, once the world hears your voice, they can't disappear you without confirming everything you said. It sounded insane. It sounded impossible. And yet, something inside her stirred at the thought. But how? Asked. They control everything, media, reports, military channels. Price pushed away from the wall, stepping closer. Not everything. We still have one card they can't touch, Air Force One. His head jerked up. What? Price's voice was steady, deliberate. Tomorrow, the president departs for a NATO summit. That plane has the most secure communications system in the world. If you're aboard, even as a civilian escort, your signal can't be blocked, can't be cut. You broadcast from there, it goes global. Every screen, every network, unstoppable. Stared, the weight of it sinking in. To step onto Air Force One, to speak into that system, it was insane. It was brilliant. And it was suicide. They'll never let me near the president, she whispered. Singh's eyes sharpened, not as Martinez, accused traitor, but as Falcon 9. The words hung heavy in the room. Her call sign. The name they once cheered in mission briefings, the name painted under her canopy, the name she thought had died the day she walked away from the Air Force. They'll recognize the call sign, Price said. Protocol dictates it. Every pilot with that clearance is logged, tracked, acknowledged. If Falcon 9 requests escort clearance, the system responds. And once you're in the air, they can't touch you without exposing themselves. His hands tightened around the mug until it trembled. Her call sign, the same name that had dragged her into this nightmare, the same name that had made her prey. Now they wanted her to weaponize it. Her chest swelled with something she hadn't felt in years. Not pride, not yet, but defiance. She set the mug down, her voice steady. Then we do it. Singh exhaled slowly, almost relieved. Price nodded, his eyes flickering with something like respect. But even as the plan in the room, stomach knotted. She could already see the danger. Boarding Air Force One wasn't just a mission. It was a declaration of war against the machine itself. And somewhere deep inside, she knew one truth Singh and Price hadn't said out loud. The moment she spoke into that system, she wouldn't just be exposing the network. She'd be signing her own death warrant. Why did the runway lights look like a line drawn between life and death? Stood in the shadows at Air Force Base, the night air sharp against her skin. Her jacket was plain, civilian, but inside she felt like she was wearing every rank she'd ever earned, every ghost she'd ever carried. Her call sign, Falcon 9, was no longer just a memory. Tonight it was her only weapon. Price adjusted his earpiece, scanning the perimeter. Singh checked her watch, her voice steady but urgent. Window is narrow. Once they start boarding, you have 90 seconds to move. After that, we're ghosts. His throat tightened. 90 seconds to gamble everything. 90 seconds to stop being prey. She closed her eyes, whispering under her breath, Falcon 9 last mission. When she opened them, Singh gave a sharp nod. Go. Walked into the floodlit tarmac, her pulse hammering with each step. Soldiers and staff bustled near the stairs of Air Force One, checking manifests, clearing personnel. She kept her pace calm, controlled, every inch of her body screaming for her to look like she belonged. The first checkpoint guard raised a hand. Ma'am, ID. Met his eyes. Captain Martinez, Falcon 9, requesting clearance. For a heartbeat, silence. Then the guard's expression shifted. He tapped his comms, murmured quickly, his gaze never leaving her. Protocol ran deeper than orders. A call sign wasn't casual. It triggered systems, recognition codes, histories buried in databases. A voice crackled through his earpiece. The guard straightened, saluted. Falcon 9, ma'am, right this way. Swallowed hard, forcing herself not to falter as she walked past. Singh had been right. The call sign opened doors her name could not. Step by step, she climbed the stairs into the plane. The air changed instantly, quieter, controlled, humming with power and authority. Inside, she was escorted to a secure communications chamber. No explanations, no questions, just protocol obeyed without hesitation. The officer in charge gestured to the console. Line is secure. Say the word, it carries global. His knees almost buckled. She stood before the console, her reflection staring back from the glass surface. A face worn by years of silence and betrayal. Her voice was supposed to carry across the world. But what if it broke here? What if her fear strangled it before it could reach anyone? She closed her eyes. She thought of the pilots, faces she hadn't let herself see in years. Their laughter, their trust, their last calls on the radio before the silence swallowed them. She thought of Tor's whispering suicide in custody. She thought of Singh's words, they're afraid of you for a reason. Her chest rose, her voice steadied. She pressed the transmit key. This is Falcon 9. Static crackled. Then silence, global silence, as the system carried her words into every corner of the world that listened. I was supposed to be forgotten, a name buried under court documents and forged evidence. They told you I was a traitor. They told you I sold secrets, but the truth is, I was their secret. Her voice grew stronger, cutting through her own fear. Operation Ghost Rider was never about defense. It was theft. Senior officers sold technology meant to protect us, sold it for profit, for power. And when pilots like me saw too much, they buried us under lies. 3 of us are dead. I was meant to be the 4th. She paused, her throat tight, but the silence on the line felt like the whole world leaning closer. I have the footage. I have the voices of the men and women who tried to make me disappear. You'll see it. You'll hear it. And when you do, you'll know the truth they've been hiding while soldiers bled and allies died. Her hand trembled, but she pressed on, her words almost a vow. They wanted me silent. Instead, I'm speaking here, because here they can't cut the signal. They can't rewrite this broadcast. They can't erase Falcon 9. Her chest burned, not from fear now, but from release. For years, I thought I was broken, that leaving the uniform behind made me weak. But weakness isn't surviving. Weakness is betraying the people who trusted you. Weakness is selling their lives for profit. Tonight, I choose not to be weak. She stopped for a heartbeat silence. Then the console confirmed the message was out, archived, replicated, beyond erasure. Exhaled, her body trembling, it was done. But then, the doors at the rear of the chamber slammed open. Tors stepped in, flanked by 2 armed men, her eyes locked on, blazing with fury. "You think that changes anything?" Tors hissed. "You think one broadcast erases the machine?" His body stiffened, but she didn't flinch. "No," she said softly, "but it means the machine can't erase me either." Tors' jaw tightened. For the first time, a flicker of doubt crossed her face. Price's voice cut through comms, sharp and urgent. "Falcon 9 now, we've got incoming." Glanced at the console one last time, her reflection staring back. Not the mechanic who had hidden in shadows, not the prisoner waiting for her end. Falcon 9. She moved fast, pushing past the guards as Singh's team stormed the chamber, gunfire echoing. The world blurred in shouts, in chaos, in the heavy beat of boots and bullets. By the time was pulled down the rear stairs and into the night, Air Force One was lifting into the sky. Safe, untouched, and carrying her voice across every network that existed. She collapsed into the transport, lungs heaving. Singh pressed a hand to her shoulder. Price gave a tight nod, relief and something fiercer in his eyes. Stared out at the shrinking silhouette of the plane, her heart heavy but steady. She had no illusions. The machine wasn't finished. Tors and her kind would crawl back, rebuild, strike again, but the silence was broken now. And sometimes, breaking silence was the only war worth fighting. Her voice drifted into the night, soft, almost prayer-like. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. And with that, Falcon 9 closed her eyes. No longer prey, but proof that the truth could fly higher than the lies that tried to bury it.